Ladies and gentlemen, our program is about to begin. At this time, we ask all our guests to please take your seats and silence your portable electronic devices. Please welcome again Dr. Danielle Wood.
Welcome back. I trust you enjoyed your lunch, and we thank those who participated in the Space Warfighters Luncheon, and we also thank Ball Aerospace for their support. To introduce our next featured speaker, please welcome Mr. Jim Chilton, President of Network and Space Systems for the Boeing Company. Thank you.
Good afternoon. I'm Jim Chilton, President of Boeing Network and Space Systems, and it's my distinct privilege this afternoon to introduce my boss, Ms. Leanne Caret. Ms. Caret leads a $30 billion enterprise that provides solutions for defense, security, space, and intelligence customers. I can tell you personally, she has high enthusiasm for the space community, and she will give you some personal reasons why that is the case. So with no further ado, please help me welcome Ms. Leanne Caret.
Think about this. If Earth were the size of a globe and a classroom, around 12 inches in diameter, the space station would be 3/8 of an inch away, and we've been there 304 times. The moon would be 30 feet away, and we've been there 9 times. And Mars, well, Mars would be about 10 miles away, and we're on our way. I come from a Boeing family. Both of my parents worked for the company. They actually met at the Michoud Assembly Facility in New Orleans, Louisiana, where the legendary Saturn V first stage was built. I grew up on Merritt Island, next to the Cape. And though I was too young to really remember or appreciate the launches my family took me to see, I will always remember years later building model rockets with my dad, learning about the principles of flight, and listening as he shared the stories of some of his greatest experiences. Once I was old enough to appreciate what it was that he did, I could understand for the first time his deeper connection to his work, which I saw so often during his career at the company. Today, I have the honor of a lifetime, leading a team of nearly 50,000 men and women who come to work each day to continue that legacy of innovation with that same sense of purpose. I have always shared with my team that my #1 source of inspiration comes from our customers, and by doing everything we can to support them in their missions. Their success makes this world a better, safer place. And so how does that connect to the challenges and opportunities we have before us today? When we think about the deeper purpose behind our vision at Boeing, we think about it in terms of 4 words: connect, protect, explore, and inspire. These concepts span everything we do, in both commercial and in defense. But what is unique about space is that it is perhaps the one domain that encompasses all 4 of these lofty aspirations at the same time. For our part at Boeing, we recently reaffirmed the importance of space in our own strategy by naming both the satellite market and human space exploration as 2 of our 6 focus markets for defense, space, and security. All of that is to say that together, in partnership with our customers, what we do in space has the power to do amazing things: to connect, protect, explore, and inspire the world. The reality of our lives today is defined by staying connected. Of course, that connectivity is largely enabled through space systems. In the last 10 years, the demand for that connectivity has surged, not just in terms of the number of users or throughput of data, but in how indispensable space-enabled capabilities are to the routines we carry out each and every day. And that is both true in military and civilian contexts. For example, with the recent addition of the wideband global SATCOM-9 to that satellite constellation, the system gained with just one satellite 10 times the bandwidth and capacity of the entire legacy communication system. With broadcast, multicast, and point-to-point capabilities, what WGS-9 and other advanced digital payloads are really offering us is the ability to connect on a scale unlike anything we've ever seen before. The possibility for many of these advancements began with the late Dr. Harold Rosen, who, as you all know, passed away earlier this year. He was a visionary who saw the potential to connect humanity like never before. Dr. Rosen and his team made the world a smaller place with the launch of SYNCOM in 1963, a triumph of imagination and engineering genius. In those days, the challenges were predominantly technical. For us today, some of the steps we must take to see the continuation of that legacy are not simply technical. To ensure these all-important connections are available to more people, more affordably, and more reliably for the future, we must make best use of the available spectrum as new systems are being developed. 5G is the future of telecom, and to ensure it lives up to its promise and potential, we strongly endorse regulatory support for multi-use applications in that spectrum, including both terrestrial and satellite-based systems. Cost-effective global service delivery can only work through the seamless integration of ground-based and space-based networks. Satellites can play a critical role in bridging the digital divide and make broadband service available to everyone, especially those in rural or underserved areas. Staying connected in the future will take leadership in this area to coordinate spectrum arrangements that offer the greatest opportunity for all. Through continued investment and innovation, next-generation satellite networks have the potential not only to support 10 to 100 times more devices with near-zero latency and unmatched data rates, but to do so with 99.999% reliability and a 90% reduction in network energy. That is inspiring. But as I shared earlier, it isn't just about technology. We live in a global environment where other considerations matter. For American satellite manufacturers, whether it be Boeing or others, and for many of our customers around the world, the effective shuttering of the U.S. Export-Import Bank has been a source of uncertainty and frustration for far too long. Without a quorum, the bank cannot finance the deals that underwrite technological progress. Several Boeing satellite deals have been lost or delayed as a result of XM being closed to our customers. Looking beyond Boeing, more than $30 billion in U.S. export sales are currently held up because XM does not have enough board members to approve transactions in excess of $10 million. Meanwhile, 85 foreign credit agencies continue to operate around the world, putting the United States at a disadvantage precisely when investments in the future should be accelerated. That figure represents just one segment of the broader economic reality of this industry. The global impact of the combined private sector and government investments in space represent $330 billion per year and hundreds of thousands of jobs. Those are connections, too, that are worthy of consideration when we talk about space. And so when I think about the power of space to connect the world, I consider both the literal connections we enable and those more nuanced connections as well. While Connect spans both commercial and military space, on the military side, there are additional factors when I think of the second of our 4 missions, Protect. Our national security assets operate in space, making the world a safer place. They protect us, and it's just that simple. But the reality is anything but simple. As we all know, it is because of the outstanding teamwork between government and industry that we can design, develop, deploy, and rest easy because of the security these systems afford us. Our partnerships, our working together, are essential. At Boeing, we are especially proud of near 2 decades partnership with the U.S. Missile Defense Agency as prime contractor for ground-based mid-course defense. Over that time, together we have matured Homeland Defense since its infancy and continue to augment the system to meet the challenges of today and tomorrow. That is only one example, and there are many more. As these systems grow in importance, the number of threats they face increase as well. That's why, for me, Protect is such a huge part of industry's mission in space. Like any system we build, whether it be a Chinook helicopter, a Minuteman ICBM, or an X-37 space vehicle, survivability is integral to the overall design. And we devote a lot of ongoing effort to improve survivability over time. We remain just as committed to the safety of our astronauts, protecting them from the dangers associated with launch, re-entry, and the harsh and unforgiving environment of space. The point is this: durable, reliable systems are fundamental. As our military system grows in capacity and capability, they must also gain resiliency, and we cannot refrain from making progress in that direction. This is difficult work. Making meaningful improvements requires significant investment, years of combined expertise, and ongoing collaboration. But that is what is required to meet the challenges of today and counter the threats of tomorrow. That's a responsibility my team and I take quite personally. The security and protections afforded to us by these systems are not highly visible or even widely known. But that doesn't make them less critical to our warfighters or to our nation's defense. What we do matters. And thanks to what we collectively have achieved in this area, we are able to enjoy our freedoms. One of those freedoms is our ability to explore. When Neil deGrasse Tyson spoke at this conference in 2012, he made a point to say that there hasn't been a true space frontier since the 1970s when Project Apollo drew to a close. But now, just 5 years after Dr. Tyson made those remarks, I believe there is evidence to suggest that we have passed a turning point on the question of frontiers. It is impossible to ignore the buzz of activity and anticipation around space exploration that has taken hold in the last several years. And that's not only true within industry, but with all sizes of companies getting involved, which is exciting to see. But also you see the excitement at NASA, which just last month saw Congress and the President reaffirm authorization of its current programs as well as Journey to Mars, for the first time since 2010. Reaffirming a national policy of human space exploration as a boost to all of our collective efforts. Thinking about all of this activity, I would add to Dr. Tyson's observation that what we really have are 2 distinct frontiers in human space exploration. One, of course, is what he was referring to: long-duration, pioneering journeys to new corners of the solar system. But we are also on the cusp of realizing the true potential of a second frontier, the commercial frontier to low Earth orbit. Remember that while Apollo exploration of lunar destinations ended in 1972, it was Apollo's next step, the Apollo-Soyuz test project and its historic rendezvous of US and Soviet spacecraft in 1975, that opened the gateway to the International Space Station's development with the Space Shuttle, and of today's parallel frontier of collaboration, research, and cooperation in low Earth orbit. This frontier represents the normalization of access to space and the imminent reality that regular travel to orbit will enable a new space economy, supporting future generations of research, commercial operations, and yes, even tourism. Since the Space Shuttle Atlantis touched down for the last time in 2011, we have seen how critical assured access to space is for the United States to retain its place as the global leader in this domain. The advancements we've made in public-private partnerships through programs like Commercial Crew are significant steps towards routine access to low Earth orbit and the International Space Station. I know I'm very excited about the advances on our own Commercial Crew spacecraft, the Boeing Starliner, which will return American astronauts to orbit on an American rocket from American soil. And for the first time ever, Starliner will demonstrate the use of a commercially developed vehicle for reliable human transportation to space. This unique time in the history of space exploration was so perfectly highlighted earlier this year when we had the fortune to unveil the Starliner spacesuit on The Late Show with Stephen Colbert. It was unprecedented, it was engaging, and it was fun. But make no mistake, our progress on Starliner is serious business. In February, we completed a successful parachute drop test, and just this week, we achieved our first power-on test of the vehicle. And we're looking forward to our first launch. So we're getting closer to the commercialization of low Earth orbit, thanks to progress we've made through partnerships and the planned addition for a commercial airlock on the US segment, as well as other advances. But we're not there yet. For 16 years, the International Space Station has offered scientists a one-of-a-kind platform for exploration and investigation. Its benefits as a national laboratory include findings in medicine and science that benefit all of humanity, while continuing to teach us about how humans will not just survive, but rather thrive in deep space. That's why I hope to see continued government and commercial investment in low Earth orbit. Until we do establish a regular cadence of deep space, the International Space Station remains vital to our ventures beyond Earth. Ultimately, the tireless human drive to explore new and undiscovered landscapes cannot be stifled. After far too long without clear objectives defined, I am thrilled that humankind does have a plan to Mars that is realistic and achievable. Exploration on this scale is a dramatic step for the human race and must be planned for and executed accordingly. As humanity plans to take its first cautious steps towards ever more distant destinations, we at Boeing are honored to work alongside with NASA on critical hardware to enable these bold, historic missions. When the Space Launch System lifts off for the first time, its thunderous engines and earth-shaking power will announce the arrival of the next generation heavy lift capability for NASA, with the reliability and performance benefiting a journey on behalf of our entire civilization. The Space Launch System will enable missions further into space than ever before. With SLS and Orion, we will see a return to the vicinity of Moon and maybe its surface. The Moon offers opportunities like government commercial partnerships and international collaborations. And through programs like Next Step, we'll establish a deep space gateway, a point of departure for missions that will bring human beings near and eventually onto the surface of Mars. Together, we have the drive, the direction, the leadership, and the technology required to take part in the first human exploration on Mars in our lifetimes. And so I believe the frontiers of exploration are very much alive, and I couldn't be more excited to be a part of it. One of the really amazing things about space is that you don't need to be directly involved to benefit from the advances made in this field. And you certainly don't need to be an astronaut to feel the excitement and majesty of a launch. Spaceflight, by definition, is inspiring. When a future astronaut does eventually set foot on the red planet, it'll be a special moment for every man, woman, and child on this planet. That's why so many of today's students, tomorrow's leaders, are studying STEM fields to prepare themselves to follow up on what we are doing today. Thanks to the Genes and Space competition, dedicated young people have the opportunity to take a direct role in real, meaningful research on board the International Space Station, at once advancing our knowledge while offering them a life-changing educational experience in turn. Conversations, debates, and ideas about our future in space fill the imagination of young engineers, pilots, and scientists. The possibilities that space represents push us in our ways to learn something new, to think a little different, and to better appreciate the world we live in today. As the poet T.S. Eliot wrote, "The end of all of our exploring will be to arrive where we started and know the place for the first time." Shortly after the final moonwalk of Apollo 17, then President Richard Nixon sent a message to the crew noting that a monumental chapter in space exploration was drawing to a close. But the tone was optimistic, not mournful. America's challenge of today has formed man's destiny of tomorrow. This was a message that traveled from the Oval Office to that capsule 250,000 miles from Earth on that day 45 years ago. I believe by working together as a community of space leaders to connect, protect, explore, and inspire, we are honoring that vision. I believe our destiny in space is assured, and I'm thrilled to be working alongside all of you on this amazing journey as we discover the future possibilities in space together. Thank you.